All right, good morning. It's a little bit early, about a half a minute, but I'm going to start anyway. Today is day 17 for our online C# programming class, and we're going to go over chapter 10 of the Muroc text. Let me say something though before we get started. I have had several people email me saying that they had trouble creating project 2.2, which was actually assigned for last week. So what I'm going to do at the end of the class today is I'm going to go over a way of doing 2.2 with you, all right? And I won't make that particular assignment. Project 2.2 will not be due until this Sunday with your chapters 9 through 11 homework. Now, if you've turned it in already and you're happy with it, great. But I will not grade that one until Sunday. All right. So if you need to pull it back or you need to redo it or whatever, you'll be able to do that. I guess I didn't realize when I looked at it this morning that there were that many extra forms and the like in there. We're going to talk about some of that stuff today. All right. Not all of it, but we're going to hit on a bunch of it. The other thing that I plan on doing today with you, just so you're aware of it, the other thing I plan on doing today is I'm actually going to give you the pretest today because there's a few things that are in there that we haven't really looked at in much detail. So in order to get you kind of ready for those, we might even do another project. We'll see how it goes, okay? Now, tomorrow, I said we will distribute, but I'll probably distribute it today. And maybe what we'll do tomorrow is it's a little bit different. Rather than us giving you time to work on the pretest and then me doing it, what I'll do, I think, is I will give you the pretest and I will ask all of you to build the interface for it. There'll be two forms on it. If you don't know how to go back and forth between forms, etc., that'll all be discussed today. So you won't have to really worry about it too much. Okay, you should be able to understand it after that. But I think that if everybody builds the two forms between now and tomorrow, that'll help and we'll be able to go over this. I'm not going to say fairly quickly, but we won't have to waste time worrying about the interface. When you create this, don't even give your controls names because we'll do it tomorrow and I'll make sure that we're all using the same names. So when we get to where we're adding code, will be, it'll be much simpler that way. And again, if you don't understand what I'm saying, just wait until a little bit later on in the class. So we're going to go over all of it. All right. There will not be a test this week. Rather, on Thursday, I'm going to give you lab for the entire period. There's no reason for doing this other than the fact that some people seem to be really always up against the deadline and you don't have enough time to work on this. So I'm dedicating a whole class period, all right, for us to be able to work on this. All right. And then as of right now, I'm looking at having your next hands-on test, hot number 4, would be next Monday, the 19th. Then on Tuesday, the 20th, a week from today, we'll start on the next section of the text, which is on object-oriented programming. And that will take some time. We'll spend all of Tuesday, all of Wednesday, and all of Thursday just going over object orientation, building some apps together, etc. All right. Finally, as it says right there, again, if you haven't turned the stuff in, your chapter 7 and 8, and now it's just written tests and homework. Those were due last Sunday. Your chapter 9 through 11 written tests, homework, and lab 2.2 will be due this Sunday, the 18th. All right. And I'm sorry that, as we go on, that we've been, massaging these due dates and I've been moving some stuff around. I'm doing this to try to benefit you, not me. All right. Okay. So with that said, let's just jump right into, we'll jump right into, there we go. Right into chapter 10. Kind of a long chapter, and it's broken up into a bunch of different areas, just so you know. The first part of the chapter, we're going to discuss 5 new controls. Those controls, and I made a picture of this, Those controls, as you can see here, are going to be radio buttons, group boxes, list boxes, check buttons, and combo boxes. We will do this entire program as shown right here. We'll build the interface, then at the end of the chapter, we'll add the code for it. Now, some of the stuff that's in here, and I think I mentioned this yesterday, yes, we'll spend quite a bit of time on combo boxes, list boxes, check boxes, radio buttons, and group boxes. But I plan on spending virtually no time on tab order because what they explain is what I showed you much earlier in the course. And the how to get information, they're going to give you a URL, and I'll give you another way that you can get information as well. Then we'll move right into multi-form projects. And to do that, we're going to create our own little project. It's going to be kind of a silly one. I think I may have even shown it yesterday, but we'll go through that in some depth and breadth of coverage. Okay. All right. And from there, we, they talk about how to rename a form. We've been doing that from the get-go. All right, I'll show you how to display the first form of an app, so we'll change that around a little, and how to display a form as a dialogue, and then finally, as it says, how to pass data between a form and a dialogue. Then the next portion, the third one here, we'll spend almost no time on because we've already been using the message box class in exactly the way they're going to show it here. So there's not much we're going to have to say about that. Finally, at the end of the chapter, we'll add the code to this payment app that you just saw the picture of. All right, so we'll go through all of that stuff today. So again, and I'm going to build this literally right before your eyes in a couple minutes, but before we do, let's just talk about what's in here. All right. Well, the first thing that you see in here, hopefully you can see, it doesn't resonate real well, but there's a box in here. There is a box around these two controls. There's also, I think that might be the only one that's in here. It looks like it. All right. That is called a group box. A group box is also known as a container. It holds things. What things? You can put literally anything in there you want. We could have drawn a humongous group box and put everything you see on your screen inside of there. For things like gender. All right. Now, it used to be for years, and I'm not being funny here. I'm not being politically correct. Good golly. Okay, my internet connection again seems to be squirrely. I have to do something about this. I'm sorry. But I just mentioned that when you are using group boxes like this and you put in radio buttons, they used to be used for things like, for example, full-time or part-time. But the one that was probably used the most all right, but the one that was probably used the most then for group boxes was gender. For almost forever, it was male, female, female, male. Now you might have other or whatever. It really doesn't matter. You're not stuck with just two selections with radio buttons. All right. You could literally have a radio buttons. For instance, if Rankin was a 4-year college, all right, we could have a radio button for freshman, one for sophomore, one for junior, senior, etc. You can do things like that. Now, what most people tend to do, what they tend to do is they set one of these. There's a property for radio buttons that's called checked. And they set the checked property all right, to true for either this one or this one. The advantage of doing that is you always have something selected. If you don't set either one, which is legal to do, they both will look like this. In other words, they'll both have the circle without anything in there. Then you'll have to go in and manually check to see if there's nothing selected. All right, but by putting one in basically as a default, you don't have to worry about doing that. Okay, the next one that's in their list box, if you remember, we actually looked at this in our array chapter. If you remember, when we created the array of 25 random numbers between 1 and 100, we put them into a list box. All right, and you can literally put just about anything you want in a list box. All right, you can fill list boxes up in at least a couple different ways, and we'll talk about both of those in just a minute. All right, then when we go down to these two, these are both combo boxes here. Again, we've sort of looked at those, but we're going to look at them some more. If you remember earlier when I did a calculator program for you, I had the drop down. All right. And we had plus, minus, multiply, and divide symbols in there as an example. So you can, again, put anything you want to or need to put in there. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit and how you'd fill that up. All right. Finally, you've got a checkbox. Checkboxes are like radio buttons in that they share some of the same properties and methods, but checkboxes are also different than radio buttons. Typically, when you use radio buttons, you use them for what are referred to as mutually exclusive choices. In other words, when you look at the example for billing at the top, typically, at least if you've set it up correctly, one or the other will be selected. Either credit card or bill customer will be selected, but it is not possible to select both. That's the mutually exclusive. If you've never heard the old story from me or from somebody else, back in the 60s, whenever, 70s, I don't know when it was, when you got a car and basically you had it had a built-in radio, and it was a lot cheaper and stuff than it is today. But you would have a radio and it would have 5 buttons on it, which you could program. And when you clicked, when you pushed in a button, station. That's really where these radio buttons here got their name. All right. Now with a checkbox can be on or off. So as it says there in the example, set as default billing method, if it's on, then that checked property is true. That means, yes, you want to set this as a default. If it's off, all right, it means it's false. The checked is false, and it's not to be set as a default billing method. Now, what I gave you right here isn't the same thing that the author said. All right, but you can take a look at them. When you use the combo box, there's different modes that you can set the combo box to. We'll look at that in a little bit. All right. With a list box, you can set it up so that you can select one thing only, multiple things only, etc. So there's different kinds of ways that you can set this up. All right. They mentioned radio box buttons, rather, again, let you select a single option. Group boxes, group related controls, and check boxes, as it says, allows you to select or deselect something. All right. Why don't we just start by, I'm going to come in here. I haven't even made a folder for this. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make a folder. I think it was called payment or something like that. We'll just make a folder called payment options right there, right on the desktop. Nothing in it yet. So let's start up, get rid of that. We'll start up Visual Studio, a brand new session here. All right. And again, I'm going to create a new project. It will be a Windows Forms app. I'm going to call it Payment Options. All right. We're going to put it out on our desktop here under Payment Options. All right. And we'll just call the solution name Payment Chapter 8 and Chapter 10, I'm sorry. Payment Chapter 10. There we go. And that'll be everything. So that'll set it up. All right. Let's quickly just take a look at what's in here. Okay, it's called payment, and we'll set it up pretty much the way that it's shown right there. And what I mean is I'll even take this and cut down the size if I can. There we go, and do it more like this. This was supposed to be, we'll change the name of the form right away to FRM payment options. Yes, we want to change everything. All right, we'll put the text in here to payment as they show in the book. All right, I will come in as I do and change the back color for the form. We'll make it this kind of orangish here, and let's take a look at what we have. All right, so this is what we want to make. So what I'm going to do is see if I can, as much as possible. This will pop off the screen in a second, but I just want to have them both up here. So the first thing we want is this group box right here, and we want to put 2 radio buttons in it. Okay, so let's move this over a bit, and we'll start by putting in a group box. All right. Now what I'm going to do, kind of like I do with labels, is I'm going to take that group box here and I'm going to make it a little bit different shade so that it stands out. All right, so there we go. Inside of that group box, I'm going to put in a couple of radio buttons. I'm not worrying right now about sizing or anything else. We can play with that stuff later. That's not a big thing. So we've got those 2 things in there. Next, we want to put in, we'll put in a label right here, followed by a list box. So let's put in a label. Again, I'll make that a little bit darker. All right. And we'll put a list box in here then. And I'll move that down a little bit. I'm sure we'll change the way that looks in just a second. So what else do we have in here? We have, next, we just have a label and a text box. Let's do this. Whoops, darn it. All right, we'll remove that in just a second. But I'm going to set the auto size to false, just so we've got something there we can work with. There we go. All right, so then we wanted this followed by a text box. Oh, not a tooltip. All right. Then after that, we want a label followed by 2 drop downs. And those drop downs are under combo box. All right. Then under that, we want a checkbox that has its own label. So there's our checkbox. Again, we'll make that a shade darker so that it stands out. All right, and finally, I think what's left were the 2 buttons, right? Yep, 2 buttons. All right, it's a little bit longer, not much. There we go. All right. And as we oftentimes do, grab everything and change the size. We may skew the way this looks for a second, but we'll fix it up right away. All right. So that's all fine. All right. So that's basically is our interface. Doesn't look fantastic, doesn't look terrible. I could spread it out a little bit more, etc. But that's got everything on there. Now, let's just not even worry about what it says in the book for a second, but let's just talk about what's in here. All right, I do want to see what these said. So one of them says credit card and the other one says bill customer. All right, group boxes, I always name mine or start my group box name with GB for group box. All right. It's always best to have some kind of a system set up for this. So for group box right here, I'm just going to say GB payment type. All right. Now, this is a little hard right here. So what I'm going to do, and what I mean is, I'm going to go to the font for this, and I'm going to reset that back to about 10. Why? Because I don't want that thing to kind of overshadow what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to go in here, and for the text, I will put in payment type like that. That to me is a little easier to read. Radio buttons typically start with RAD. So this is one was credit card, and what was the other one? So credit card and bill customer. So this first one will be RAD credit card, and it will have the text on it of credit card. All right. And the second one, move that over just a little bit there. Okay. So this one will be RAD bill customer. Okay. So that's all set. Now, if you noticed, one thing that I did was I put in the radio buttons. I'm sorry, I put in the group box first, then I dragged the controls or put the controls in there. All right. If you decide that you're going to sit there and make your controls first and then make your radio, your group box and drag them, sometimes it doesn't establish a relationship. But if you look on here, if I click here, notice that when I move it, they all move. That's what we want. So I can be sure now these are all part of this. Also, if you notice, if you look on either the credit card or the bill customer, it doesn't matter. But I'll look here on the bill customer. It has, both of these have a field that says checked, and it's set to false. If I change it to true, you can immediately see what happens. So now one of those two will be set at all times. All right. And again, that's typically the way that it's done. All right. Next thing that's in here says credit card type. So I'll change that. And I'm probably going to have to make that either smaller text or move it over or whatever. Let's just do this. Let's make it smaller here. Move this over. Okay, and maybe we'll do the same thing with that one in a minute. But this will just be our old LBL credit card type. All right. And we will set the text as well to credit card type. Oops. Okay, it still isn't big enough, but that's fine. In fact, let's just make this chunkier. All right. I'm not worried about aesthetics right now. This list box, typically a list box starts with LST. So this will be LST, credit, card, type. All right. And I can already tell you that this is probably going to have to be a little bit bigger. We'll worry about that in a minute. All right. And next we have card number here. So that'll be card number. So again, let's do the same thing we just did. And that is I'll move that over and I will move this over. All right. So this will be LBL card number. And it'll say card number. Again, I didn't make it wide enough, evidently. All right. And then this will be TX. This is just a text box. So this will be TXT card number. All right. And then these are our drop down or our combo boxes. And they both say expiration date is what we have for this. So again, this is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to widen this out a bit. All right. Just try to make it look a little bit more centered and decent or whatever you want to call it there. Then out to here to here. So this will be LBL expiration date. And all right, this will be, these are drop downs and they're combo boxes. Typically they start with CBO. So this will be CBO. I don't know which one they use first. So the first one will be month and the next one will be year. So this will be this one will be CBO month. And this one will be CBO year. All right, then this is our checkbox. And that says set as default billing method. All right, so checkboxes are usually CHK. I'll just call it CHK set as default. All right, we will put the text in there. Set as default billing method. And you'll notice as soon as I hit enter that the size of the box will expand to hold that. All right. And then finally in here, we have our two buttons, which are OK and cancel. All right. So we'll just make this literally BTN OK, and it'll have an OK on there. And the other one will be BT cancel, and it'll have the word cancel on there. All right, now, just so you know this, there's one more thing I want to do, and that is I want to move all of this stuff down. And I want to do that because our list box that we have is going to need more room. Like that. Okay, that's going to be, I'm not touching it anymore. In fact, I'm just going to lock it into place. So I'm sure I don't have to touch it anymore. All right, it should be locked into place now. I'm not worried right now about setting accept button, about setting cancel button, about start position, or about tab order. You know, you have been told Some of you, for whatever reason, on test are still not doing that, so you're losing points. But you all know how to do that already. That's what I'm getting to. So let's talk about a few things in here. Again, you'll notice that if I run this program right now in its current form, there it is. I can go back and forth. That works just fine. All right. I can't come in here and do anything in here. I can come in here because it's a text box and do that. And there's nothing here and there's nothing here. All right. So let's first talk about how we can put stuff in here. In here, we want the month. Now there's at least two ways of doing this, and I'm going to show you both of them right now. When you work with this stuff, so when you work with combo boxes like this, if I click on either box, it doesn't matter, but this is the one I'm going to want to fill. It has what's referred to as an items property. All right. And it says collection. And if I go in here and click on the ellipsis, what you'll notice is it comes up with this. So I'm going to type in here, select a month. Then underneath that, I'll put in January, February. There's a reason I'm going to put them all in because I'm going to copy them in just a second. February, March, April, May, you know the drill. All right, just going to copy those. Now, they're all in there. Okay. I'm going to click OK, and you'll notice now if I run this, it doesn't show anything. But when I click here, it shows all of them. Okay, and it looks like I should make this a little wider as well because that won't hold all of it. But it is in there, is what I'm getting to. All right, so let's do this. We'll move. We're going to come back here. I'm going to have to unlock my interface for a sec. Make that a little wider. And make this a little wider as well. So when we started this now, when we started it, all right, you noticed, or hopefully you noticed right away, that it didn't show anything. All right. It did not show anything. Again, when we did this, there was nothing in here, even though all the stuff was there. All right. And how do we fix that? All right. When the program begins, if I want the first thing that's in here, which was select a month, if I want that to be highlighted or the one that's being shown, all right, I'm going to show you, I think that both of these will work, but I'm going to show you the main way of doing it. So I'm going to go here into the form load. So I'm going to double click on my form, and now I'm in the load event, and I'm going to come in here and say CBO month dot, and I'll notice what comes up in here. If I said items, okay, dot, then this is the stuff that I can do to work on the entire combo box at a time. And there's quite a few things in here if I work my way down. I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to come in and just work with one thing that's in there. The selections that you put into that items list that you just saw me type into. All right, those different selections, they start at 0 and they're actually put in as an array. And arrays have indexes. You know this. So if I come in and say selected index equals 0, like that, then notice when I run it now, it now says select a month. Still isn't wide enough, but you get the idea. And now they're all in there. I can go and select any one I want and change it. It's not a problem. All right. But that is typically how you do that. Now, I want to mention something else. I want to show you the way that they actually did it in the text. okay? And that is this: rather than coming in, rather than coming in and having this collection that we saw in here, all right, so rather than coming in right there, all right, and going to items like we just did, all right, and clicking on there and grabbing all those things like this or putting them in manually, which you can do, all right, but I'm going to remove that for now. Okay, so now it's back to nothing. And I'm going to go back into my form load event. And what I'm going to do in there is I'm going to create an array. So I'm going to say string bracket months equal, and you've seen this kind of thing before now. So I'm going to come in here and do this, and then I'm going to paste all that in. Now it's going to look ugly, as you can see. All right, I could put it on one line or two lines. I could put it on multiple lines, and that's what I'm going to do, just like this. All right, so all I want to do here now is I want to make sure, yeah, this is going to look be real funky doing it like this, but I'm going to do it like that anyway. All right. Why it does that, I don't know. So, but we're going to do it like this. Like I said, there is absolutely nothing wrong with manually keying them in like we did to begin with. Nothing. Oops, it's totally fine. All right. But by putting them in like this, and then of course I'll need to put this in here. Boom. Now, if I ran the program, guess what? There'd be nothing in there. I have to fill this in. So let's look at the IntelliSense here and see what this says. All right, so it's saying for each string, month in months. All right, and I guess that's not going to give me much more help than that, but I want to just show you what it is and how we can fill this up like this. All right, so I can come in here and say CBO months.items.add month. Now, who cares? I mean, hey, it wasn't that much to type this in, but imagine that you had 20 or 30 things in there as possibilities. If you've got 20 or 30 things in either one of these, if you do, you'll get a scroll bar that'll come down here. So it'll allow you to move up and down. That's totally fine. All right. Sometimes, though, you're going to be getting that information from a file or somebody else will have typed it in already for you. You won't have to worry about doing that, is what I'm getting to. All right. So, what we did, if we go back in here and we take a look, is there is select a month. So, that would be invalid. All right. Now, this then would be basically item 0, item 1, item 2, item 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Two nice things about that. One is it maps up with the months. All right. And the other one is if they haven't selected a month, you'll know. So you can go in and you can check to see if the selected index is 0. And normally when you check that, you're not going to check to see if it's equal to 0. You're going to say less than or equal to 0. If nothing is selected in the combo box, the selected index automatically gets set to -1. So if I go in there and make a check, and if I say if CBO month dot selected index is less than or equal to 0, that'll handle both it being equal to this or it not being equal to anything. So you'll notice now that doing it this way, if I come in and save and run it again, it'll look like it did before. There it is. Select a month up and look what it's doing. Every time I'm doing this, it's adding those months. All right. I screwed up, but that's a good thing. Why? Because I want to show you that what you want to do before you go in and add this stuff is I can come in there and say CBO month dot items dot clear. That way, every time this runs, it'll clear it before it goes and fills this up. So now when I do this, it should have only 12 months. All right. So again, this in here, what you see in here is how to set one of these up and how to fill it. The other one is year, and I'm going to wait on that for just a bit until we actually look at the code that's in the book. All right. And if you say, well, why are you doing that? All right. Well, the reason that I'm going to do that is it's a little bit more complex. All right. So let's look at this one then. So let's come back in here and come back to here. All right. And look at the credit card type. Okay. Now we can do this the same way, just so you're aware of that. All right. What do I mean? Well, if we take a look at the picture here, we've got three listed. We've got Visa, we've got MasterCard, and we've got American Express. All right. So we could do the same thing. And what I mean is we can come in here and we can create, we've got a months. Well, what if we came in here and we created another thing in here, string, bracket, and just called it credit card type. And we said that was equal to, and we can do it the same way. All right. And in here, I think it was Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. Whoops. Now, one thing you hopefully are starting to notice is, you look at this and wow, this kind of stinks in that really when you think about it, now what's happening is my load event's getting really big. All right. So one thing I probably would think of is, well, you know what? I might be using these anywhere in the program. So I'm going to take both of these here and I'm going to make them global. All right. I'm just going to move those up in error until I go and paste that back in. But now they're global. Now I don't have to worry about setting them or doing anything else. They're just there and they're available to me. All right. Now, again, you don't have to do that. And this is one of those things I've mentioned to you in other classes that some people would disagree with what I just said and said, no, you shouldn't make anything global. Well, for what we're doing here, it's not bad, really. All right. But now notice what I've done here is I've really cut down this. All right. Can we cut it down even more? Yes. And we'll do that in just a second. So if we wanted to go and do this, this is basically filling up the months combo box. So let's do that. We'll call fill up months combo box. You get the error because of course it hasn't been written yet. All right, and I'll just paste that back in. All right. Now the other thing I can do is now I can call fill up. Well, this one we'll do a years combo box, but we'll do that later. So let me just comment that out. But I can also come in and say, fill up credit card type list box. I'm being really literal here. All right. Because I'm not putting in really any documentation. So private void, and again, fill up credit card list box. We're going to do the same kind of thing. We can say LST credit card type dot items dot clear. Then we can say for each credit card, all right, type and credit card type. Well, I don't like to use the same name like that. That can be confusing. So I'm going to say CCT here, CCT, for each credit card type in credit card type. All right. Then I'm going to say LST for the list box, credit card type dot items dot add CCT. All right. Very similar to what we did up here. Okay. And if we want, we can again set a index to 0. Now, this is a little bit different when you look at it because listbox just shows things. All right. And I made that one my default. I didn't have to do that. We didn't have to set anything there. Plus, you'll notice we got a little white space there. We could add a few, more things in the future, etc., if we wanted to do that. All right, maybe we want to come in there and there's some other kind of credit card we want to put in. Now, one thing that's not shown in the picture here, but I want to show it to you so you see it, is when you work with either combo boxes or list boxes, you can tell it to automatically sort things for you. So even though you saw that we put this stuff in and we put it in not in alphabetic order. In fact, it's in reverse alphabetic order. All right. If I come back to here and I click on this, there is a sorted property down here. And if I change it from false to true and run the program, you'll notice how it changes. It's now in alphabetic order. Now, the only reason I'm telling you that is it is possible to go and fill up, for example, a list box like this. It is possible to fill it up in code. And what I mean is maybe we'd be asking some questions and this is like database stuff that we haven't gotten to yet, but we would ask the system to only show us people who worked as web programmers so we could get a list of those people here. If we wanted to be an alphabetized list, we could set sorted to true. That's all I'm trying to get across to you here. All right. So we've talked a little bit about this, and we've talked a little bit about this, and a little bit about this. The one we didn't talk about, the simplest one really, is just the checkbox. All right. And checkboxes, just like radio buttons, have a property to them that is called checked. If it's set to true, all right, then this will be checked. If it's set to false, it won't be. Just like if this is set to true, that'll have the dot in the middle. And if this is, etc. Now, if we decide when we look at this, that let's just say that 75% of our people here use credit cards. They don't get billed directly. Well, then, of course, I'd want to go back over here and want to make sure that what was set here to checked, that was true. Because, and one thing you can't do here is make that true and that true. It doesn't make sense. They can both be false, or one has to be true and the other has to be false. All right, let's just jump back into the book for a little bit. So I just wanted to give you a kind of a little history or whatever you call it on that. All right. So with combo boxes and list boxes, notice it says here common members. So these are things in common between list boxes and combo boxes. We already looked at the selected index. All right. That starts at 0 and it goes on because it's basically an array. And if nothing is selected, the selected index is set to -1. Selected item, basically, all right, that'll be which one, as it says, the selected item, a reference to which one you chose. All right, the text is the text, the selected item. I just showed you what sorted was. All right, items is a collection. Drop-down style, as you notice in here, there's different ways that you can do this. And notice drop-down style only applies to combo boxes. All right. You can set it to a drop-down list where the user must select an item from a list. You can set it to drop down. There's 2 or 3 different things, so we'll look at them in a second. There's also, for a list box, something called selection mode, which means I can only select one thing or I can select multiple things. And if you set it to multi-simple, you can select multiple things, but they have to be connected to one another. If you set multi-extended, you can select any of them. And if you say, I don't understand, well, just to take a very, very quick look at this. All right, when we ran this, by default, you can only select one of these. All right, if we set it to multi-simple, you could select 1, 2, or all 3, but you couldn't select this one and this one because they're not connected to one another. You'd have to select all 3. If you set it to multi-extended, you can have any combination of 1 or 2, any 2 or all 3. All right. All right. Then you'll notice this is the default action in here. Selected, indexed, changed. So when we run our program like this, when we run our program, right now the selected index is set to 0. Now it's set to 1. Now it's set to 2. Now it's back to 0. Now it's 1. I'm sorry, now it's 0. Now it's 12. All right, just so you get the idea of what we're talking about here. All right. There's also, as it says, some common members. Notice there's a count. So if you wanted to know how many items were in the list, you could do that. I already showed you the add. We put that in the loop when we add things to a list. Now, when you add things to a list, by default, you add them to the end of the list. All right. So if I add 3 things, if I add January, February, March, January will go first, then February, then March. All right. There's also an insert. So let's say I put in January, February, March, May, June, July, and I forgot April. I could insert it in the right place in the list. All right. Also, okay, notice there's a remove. It removes the first item from the list, but there's also a remove at when you can tell it to remove, you put an index in there and it will remove any of the items or any item you tell it to remove. The clear we've already looked at. All right. So those are the main ones that are in here. And again, even though they look quite different, list boxes and combo boxes, all right, they basically share the same controls. And what you'll find in a second is so do radio buttons and check boxes. All right. Now this is pretty much what I set up before. I put them on multiple lines, and then we did this. Now here's the one for the year. We can do this, but let's look here. All right. And they've got year equal date dot time. I'm sorry, date time dot today dot year. So if we ran that right now, of course, that would be equal to 2023. End year would be year plus 8. So 2023 plus 8 would be 2031. All right. And then this would put in there that select the year for us. And this would automatically fill it up. So we'd have in there 2023, 2024, 2025, all the way through 2031. Plus, if we ran this program, that's exactly the way it would look on December 31st, 2023. But if we ran it again on January 1st of 2024, then rather than the years going from 2023 to 2031, they would now go from 2024 to 2032. So let's see. So not that much typing right here. So let me grab this. And I'm going to grab these. I'm just going to type them in. So they're manually putting it in here like this select a year thing that's in here. All right. Oops. So let me copy all that. Now, if we go back to our program, if you remember previously what we had in here in our, let's see, there it is. In our load event, we had this fill up years combo box. Well, we hadn't written it yet, but that's what we're going to put down here. All right. Now I must have called it something else. So CBO, just year. All right. All right. So now if I run it again, we didn't tell it to show anything at first, but notice select the year and they're all in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. And I'm looking at that. I thought it was supposed to be year plus 8. I thought 2031 was supposed to be in there. Let's take a quick look. But before we do that, let's come in here and just like we did up here with the list box, once we get out of the loop, let's say CBO year selected index equal that. All right, so year plus 8. So 2023 plus 8 should give us 2031. Less than or equal to end year. So there's our select a year, and now it's got 2031 in it. All right. Okay, this thing is coming together. All right. Now, the way they filled up the one with the credit cards is notice they just manually put those in. I put the ones into an array, and then I put them into a loop like we did up above. You could do it either way. All right. Now it says statements that get information from a combo box. All right. So notice as it says, year index is going to be year dot selected index. The text will be the year dot text. All right. Now the year value, notice what they're telling you to do here. This is something we've looked at, but not in a lot of depth. This expire year, notice what it has. First of all, we are casting this to an int, but the key thing is what's in here. All right. And what this says is if we have a selected item, so if we have selected something, make it an integer and put that into here. If we have not selected anything, all right, this is that null coalescing operator. It says take -1 and assign it to there. All right, we could have done that with an if statement just as well. And then again, they show you some working with combo boxes, etc. All right. Now, as it says, you can also use the string collection editor to load items into a combo box or list box. All right. So there's different ways that you can do it. If you say, what the heck is that? I didn't show it to you, but yet I did. What the heck does that mean? Well, when we look at this, okay, if I click on here, or in fact, let's see, I'll click on here. What is going to typically happen when you do this, I don't know if it's because it's locked or not, but there it is. If I have to unlock this, and I guess I'll have to unlock this one too. But what you may or may not notice is now when I click on this, there's a little thing up here. It's also up here. It's also up here. It's hard to see, but it's called a smart tag. And if I click on the smart tag, it's going to bring up, all right, if I go there and I click, uh, you're basically going to use this more with databases, but there is a way that usually when you click on this, there, if I go to edit items, that look familiar? So that's another way that you can go and bring that thing up. All right. In other words, if you click the smart tag, it's the equivalent of you coming in here and clicking on items, all right, or item, and then clicking on the ellipsis. It'll basically do the same thing as if I click here and then I go to items and I click on there. Okay. And you might say, well, that's fine. Why do they have two of them like that? It may not make any sense right now. It'll make a little bit more sense later. Notice when I lock my interface into place, now that smart tag doesn't show. All right. All right. Now they mention here that in chapters 20 and 21, it says you will learn how to use techniques to load combo boxes and list boxes from a database. In other words, from a source that already has the stuff in there. All right, it is 9:01, it looks like. We've gone an hour. So let's take a break and let's come back. In fact, let's just make it 10 or 9:12. I'll see you in about 10 minutes then. All right, it is 9:12, so let's start back up again. You'll notice that this next section that we're going through is going to very similar to what we just did with list boxes and drop down lists, and that is it's going to talk about check boxes and radio buttons. All right, as it says here, the main difference between these controls is that, again, radio buttons are mutually exclusive and check boxes operate independently. So for instance, let's pretend for a second, I'm making this up. I just had kind of thought of it right now. So let's pretend that we want to ask somebody. So we want to say here, contact via, and we're going to give them three options. We can text you, we can email you, or we can phone you. All right, maybe even a USPS mail. All right. Now, if it turns out that you want to provide more than one contact method, you'd make them checkboxes. All right. If you decided you only wanted to allow one of these methods, you'd make them radio buttons. So sometimes it's a judgment call as far as which one you should use. Sometimes it's fairly obvious as to which one you want to use. The property, as they say in here, that you're most likely going to work with is the checked property. All right. So they're going to show some examples. And again, it's something like this. There's a shortcut, just like there is with any Boolean variable. So saying if RDO credit card dot checked, it's a shortcut for if RDO credit card dot checked equal true. You can use that one, but there's really it's superfluous. In other words, it's not necessary, so you typically wouldn't do it. All right. Group boxes, we'll look at the examples in just a minute. Again, they're containers. All right. It says when you use a group box, you should know that all the controls it contains will move with the group box when you move it in the form designer. You can't add existing controls on a form to a group box by just dragging them in. All right. Rather, it says you have to add the group box first and then drag the controls in. So this was the group box example. But we be able to figure this out. All right. As it says, with the check changed, if I go from here and I click here, a check change event will take place. All right. Just the same way if I take something with a checkbox in it that is checked and I uncheck it, the same type of thing. All right, so again, this will set the value to true. You can set them in code. Most of the time this semester, when I've been setting things, I've been setting them in the designer window. All right, right in the properties window. But you can set them in code just as easily. All right. So now notice what they have here. It says check changed. If credit card dot checked, enable controls, otherwise disable controls. What the heck does that even mean? Well, when you look over here at what we've been working with, if they've chosen credit card, yeah, we should allow them to put in a credit card type, put in a credit card number, put in an expiration date, put it, in month and year. But if they choose bill customer, these should all be disabled. All right. And again, they're showing how you can set that up here right inside of code. Very disturbing. There it is. Okay, so again, I just said my internet connection went down, it came back up. So any radio buttons that are not placed within a group box function are a separate group. You typically don't want to do that. The tab order we've looked at already. There's really nothing new here. To display the form, it says view tab order. Hey, you know that. All right. You know how to change the tab order. There's nothing new as far as what to do. As it says, it determines the order in which controls receive the focus. Okay. All right. I don't think there's really any more we have to talk to about that. How to get the information you need from a control. Turn to it, I don't know. Okay. So if you go to learnmicrosoft.com, all this stuff here, okay, now they give you an example. So you can go out to learn.microsoft.com and you can put anything out there. Now, what has worked in the past, I haven't tried it because again, it conflicts with some of the messages on my machine. But at least the way it used to be set up in here is if you were here and geez, I want to know more about this list box, you could click on it, and then on your function keys at the top of your keyboard, you could hit the F1 function key, and that there was internal external documentation. And what I mean is that there was documentation that should come up, all right, that is from Microsoft itself that should have been loaded when we went in and installed the software. I don't know if that works or not anymore. Otherwise, just learn.microsoft.com. Okay. All right. Let's talk about multi-form projects. So for now, I'm going to go back to here and I'm going to do a file, save all. And just for now, I'm going to close this. All right. Now, I wish that I would have given this a different name, this solution, etc. And I can by just renaming it. So I'm going to rename this Chapter 10 Projects. All right. I like that better. Why? because I'm about to create a new project. In fact, I'm going to create two of them, but we'll do them one at a time. The first one will be almost so simplistic, you'll be like, why did you waste our time? Just bear with me if you would, please. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to do an add. I'm going to do a new project. And I'm going to add another Windows Forms project. And I'm going to call this red, white, blue V1. Okay. All right. So all I'm going to do is I won't make any change on the size or anything here. All right. But I'm going to change this, just change the name. Why? Because it's a good thing to do. So I'll just call this FRM RWB for red, white, blue V1. Yes, I want to change it all over. And just so you can see it in action, I'm going to go in and I'm going to make the color of the form yellow. All right, so there it is. Now I'm going to put 4 buttons on here. Like I said, this is almost such a simplistic program, but there is a reason I'm doing it the way I'm doing it here. Okay, I don't know what happened there, but there we go. I thought I made that yellow, but I must have reset it accidentally. All right, so this is going to be it as far as the interface, so you can see how simple it is. All right, but let's change the font size. All right, so this first one will be BTN red, right? And it'll say red. We're going to have, it'll be red, white, and blue. So red, white, spelled that wrong, and blue. This will be our old familiar exit button. All right, so this will be red. All we're going to say here is the name of our form, FRM, this dot, no, well, there's different ways we can do it. I'm going to say this dot back color equal, and there's different ways we can do this. We're not going to talk about color right now. So color dot red. All right. So that's the first one. For white, just copy the line from up above and change that to white. All right. Come here for blue. Again, copy that line down. And finally, we'll put in the code for our exit button. Now, this is just one line, so I'm not writing different routines. We could write a routine to do that too, but I will put in the familiar exit program or not here. All right. And I grabbed it from a previous program just so I wouldn't have to waste time here. So there it is. All right, so there's my whole program. And you'll notice now if I run it, again, I'm not worrying about tab order or, whoops, or anything here. I'm not worrying about any of that stuff. All right. You can go back and set that or leave it or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But here it is. So it's yellow, it's red, it's white, it's blue, and we can exit. Now there's nothing, there should be nothing at all, nothing that's surprising about that. All right, as far as I know. But the problem is, what if I wanted each one of these to be in their own form? So in other words, when this came up, all right, when I click red, I want it to go to a new form that is red. When I click white, I want it to go to a new form that's white. When I have blue, I want it to go to a new form that's blue. And we can do that. And that's what we're going to learn how to do now. So this would be main right here. If I did want to give it, I can put some text on there rather than form one. So we'll say main form. All right. And just so it's simple, I'm going to copy my interface. So copy. All right. So I'm going to create another project. That's it for this project here. I'm going to create another one right now. Yes, I want to save. All right. So I'm going to come back in here, do another add, new project. It will be another Windows form. And this one will be called red, white, blue V2. All right, there that is. We'll make it yellow just like we did before. All right, hopefully I can bring those in. All right. So there that is. So again, I want this to say main form or just main or something. So I can tell that it's the main form. Main form. Okay, now that's in there. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create another form. So I'm going to come over to my project. I'm going to right mouse click on it. I'm going to choose add. And this time I'm going to go down to form. I can either go down to form or I can choose new item and go to form, either one. But I'm going to go to here. All right. And I'm going to call this frmred.cs. Now I don't have to rename it. It's now called frmred. All right. So there it is right there. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to paste that in. So I now have these buttons again. All right. But I'm going to immediately make the background color of the form red. All right. And, all right. So that is red. That's the first thing. And I'll change the text up here. So it says red form. Now, this isn't going to work until we put some code in here, but that's okay. So for the form itself, let's go to text and we'll just put red form. You can probably guess what we're going to do here. Lock this into place. And I'm going to create another one. So again, I'm going to right mouse click, add. This time we'll choose new item. Instead of going down to form here, we'll go to new item. All right. And it says, oh, I don't know what it's showing there. Show all templates. Try that again. No, I've not seen that before. Not sure what's happening there, so forget it. I'll just do it the other way. So add, and I'm going to go down to form here. And again, well, now it brought it up. I don't know. Well, there's form anyway. So this will be FRM white. .cs. All right, I'm going to paste that in. Okay, we will change the name. We don't have to change the name. Notice it's FRM red and FRM white. Okay, so I will set the background color here to white. All right, we will change the text up here to white form. All right, and then finally, we're going to make one more. And that is, I'll come in here again, right mouse click, add, go down to form, and I'm going to make FRM blue.cs. Spell that wrong. Let's do it again. Okay. I'll change the text right away to blue form. I'll change the background color right away to blue. All right, I will pop in my buttons. Okay, and now in just a second at least, I'll be off. All right, I would probably pretty this up. Maybe I will do that before I put this out there on the system. So they're all, the buttons are in the exact same location. It's not really that big a thing. All right. The other thing I do want to do is where this is our main form here. I want to change this to FRM main form. So I'll rename that to FRM. We'll just call it FRM main. Yes, I want to change it every place. Okay. So now if I do run this, it'll run just fine. But none of these work because we haven't put any code. Oh, white, blue. Oh, there's some code in there. Oh, it's running the last one, I think. I don't know, but we'll find out in just a second. All right. So let's come in here and make sure that we're running the right one because I don't think we were. All right. So I want to set my start project and now let me run this. There we go. Nothing happens because there's no code in there yet. All right. All right. So we want to start putting in some code. So let's talk about a couple things before we even do this. First of all, what you'll notice is if I go down to the bottom file that's in here, the bottom file, the last line that you see in here is new FRM main. If I were to change that, just so you see it, to new FRM blue, any errors, but notice if I run my program now, it starts with the blue form. So whatever you put in here, if you've got multiple forms like we do, if you manually go in there and change that like I just did, this is telling it which one to make your opening form. Now, in not too long a time, we're going to come in and we're going to talk about creating a splash screen. You may or may not know what a splash screen is, but if you've ever gone out to a website where maybe they show a little picture for a few seconds and then it goes away and then you see the form or something else, we're going to make something like that. All right. So let's come in here and take a look at the code that we want to put in then. So I'm going back to main. All right. The first thing is that, well, they all have the exit button on there. So let me come in there and type in the old exit program, whoops, exit program or not. All right. And then we will come in and down here, because I saved it from here, we will add that. Now, when we get into the next section, we will learn how to put this in there once and then use it 4 times. But for now, we're going to have it in there 4 different times, once for each button. All right, so that's the only thing that's in there right now. But let's go in and let's put in the other stuff. I wish I had done that first, but I didn't, and it's okay. All right, so let me close this. Let me close this. I'll leave that open, and I'm going to close this, and I'm going to close this. Don't save. It's totally fine. All right. So what do we do for these other buttons here? All right. Again, I've got the exit one first, but for red and for white and for blue. All right. What do we do? Well, because I'm squirrely this way, I'm going to move my exit button stuff down to the bottom. All right. So that's now been moved. But it's pretty simple. It's actually, in many ways, unbelievably simple. We have to put in about 3 lines of code for each one of these. The first line will be the same for all 3, and it'll be this dot hide. All right. Now, just to show you what that does, when I run the program and I click the, whoops, somehow it went back to blue and I don't know why. I thought that I had changed it, but let's double check. Nope, that should be FRM main. So let me send that back to main. All right, file, save all, and run this. Right now, if I click the red button, notice what happens. That's a hide. It went away. It is hidden. So what I have to do then is I have to create, or what's also called instantiate. So create or instantiate a new red form. So I say form, and I can call it whatever I want, but I'm just going to call it the same thing that I did. So FRM red equals new FRM red. This name, call it whatever you want. I could have just called it red and it would have been fine. Now, that won't show it because we have to now say FRM red dot show dialog. Now, some people get confused using the same name here and here. So let's just call it red. All right, so we use red there and we'll use red there. All right, and I'll tell you what, let's just grab this code right here. Let's copy it down and we'll change this to white. And we'll do it one more time. Probably already guessed, but we'll make this blue and blue. Right? Now let's see if it works. Now, the only one that this is going to work off of is our main form because we didn't copy it yet to the other forms. All right, so file, save all. All right, so if we go to our main form, boom, we're at a red form. That's good. If we run it again, and we click white, now we're at the white form. Good. If we run it again, and we click blue, now we're at the blue form. So they all seem to be working. That's good. And finally, let's just double check that our exit works. All right, no, exit, yes. Okay, well, that's pretty good. All right, now I can come back and I can go back to each one of these and do the same exact thing. All right, now I want to show you, there's a reason I'm doing this, and I'm doing it this way. But I'm next going to go over to my red form. All right, well, the first thing here is I'm already on the red form. Doesn't really make a lot of sense for me to click, I have a red button here. So I'm going to change the name of that button. And instead of BTN red, I'm going to call it BTN main. And this is going to allow me to go back to the main page. All right. So I will put in here main like that. All right. Now I'm going to quickly, or as quickly as I can, I'm going to try to run through and do these. All right. So this is main. So this will be form main equals new FRM main. All right, so there's that one. hopefully one of the things that you're seeing out of this is, wow, it sure would be a lot nicer if we didn't have to keep typing in all this code. That's what we're going to be moving towards soon. Right? And then for our exit, I'm just going to grab what I had in the other one. Now it should be working now for the red one as well. So file, save all. All right. And now if I go from main, if I go to red, I can go from red back to main, back to red. I can go from there to white. I guess I'd set the um, center screen for one or two of these. Okay, I didn't realize I had done that, but I can now go from red to blue, and I can go from red to exit. So they all work now. All right. Now, I'm not going to take the time right now to go and put in and copy that code over to the white and to the blue, but I will when I put this out there a little bit later today. All right. I will put that all out there. But let's take a look at what they talk about in the book now. Now, how to add a form to a project. I've already shown you that. And again, there are two ways of doing it. I don't know why the first one was so funky like that. But if you right mouse click on the project name and you choose add, it should have come up like this before and it didn't. I don't know why. But if you go to new item, I'm still doing that, add new item. Not sure what that is. I guess I've never seen it like that before. But you can always right mouse click on the project, go to new, sorry, go to add, and go all the way down to form, which is about 5 from the bottom. And it'll show you the dialog. Make sure that one is always highlighted. You can give it a name. There's where you can just name it, where you won't have to rename it. So like FRM, if I wanted to add a black onto here, I could put in FRM black. You don't even need to put in the .cs. It'll put it in there for you. But I always just put it in anyway because I'm used to doing it that way. So that's the main way that you come in here and you add, all right, you add a new form or a new dialog here. All right, that's what they talk about here. Now you can also add an existing, all right. I guess I could have even done it, where I built it previously and I could have grabbed them and put them in. So there's different ways you can do that. Be leery of doing a lot of stuff with grabbing existing stuff and moving it from one place to the other. Occasionally, at least, it gets a little hinky where it might not work exactly the way you think it's going to work. All right. I mean, it's software. So there's a chance that something is not going to work the way that it's advertised to work. So when you come in here and you generate a new form, that's about all you get. Not a whole heck of a lot. All right, this is the form itself, your form file. This is the designer file that's done in the background. All right, there might be a load event in there and it's going to go and add that stuff. So in other words, if I go back just to show you, and this should make total sense to you by now. Sorry about that. But if I go back into here and I go back to the project we were working with, which was what is it? Chapter 10 projects. And nope, our other project that we had here, I'll find it eventually. But the other one that we were working on, the payment options right here. All right, so I can go back into this if I want to, and I can right mouse click now and choose add. Try it again. Right mouse click, choose add, go down to form. And they wanted another form in here. So we have right now in here, we have FRM payment options. And they want us to add FRM payment. Boom, now I've got another form in my project. All right. I don't know any other way to show it to you other than that. And when I did that, what they're saying is when I just did that, if I right mouse click and view the code, that's what gets put in for me, which is not very much. And I'm not going to go out to the form designer file, but if I did, you'd basically see it, just a skeleton of stuff that was added in there. All right. Okay. So I can close that. I can close that for now, at least. Okay. So as they mention here on the bottom of page 319, the name you specify for the form is used by both files for the form class. So again, you won't, when you do it, you add it like this, you won't have to rename it. You know, if you don't give it a name, it'll be called form 1 or whatever. Or if you already have a form 1, it'll be called form 2. So this is the time you can just name it once and set it and forget it type of thing. Visual Studio uses the name of the form when you create an event handler for one of the form's events, like the load event. Yeah. All right. Now, let's take a look at this and see if there's something in here we can use. Okay. C# 10.0, which is fairly recent, introduced global using directives, which are directives that you can use the global keyword to make namespaces available for your entire project, not just for a single class. For instance, it says right here in the example, they use a global directive in here, global using, which means that they don't have to put it in here, but everything that's in here is available. All right. What I will attempt to do, I probably should have done a better job of reading the chapter first, but what I will attempt to do is to see if I can use this and go back and write something globally where I can put in a bunch of these things to get a red form, to get a white form, to get a blue form, or to go back, or to do an exit and write it once and to be able to call those from each one of the forms. All right. I don't know if I can do that through what they show here, or if we'll have to wait until we get to chapter 12 and we start talking about classes. I'm not sure. All right. So I don't want to waste any time going over this because it might work and it might not. And if it does work, we'll go over it tomorrow. All right. All right. Renaming a form, you know how to do that. Heck, we've just done it a bunch of times here. Right click on the form in the Solution Explorer and choose Rename. All right. All right. How to display the first form of an app? Guess what? We've done that as well. All right. I showed you how you can go into the program.cs file and change that. Nothing new there. All right. So this is new. So let's pick it up here on page 326. How to display a form as a dialog. So what they're going to show you is this. All right. In other words, if you've got a form up, how to basically have another form just kind of pop up after it. And we'll look at that in just a moment. All right. I want to just see how long this is. This will be on how to pass data between a form and a dialog. All right. So we should be able to do all this before our next break. That's what I wanted to check on. All right. So it says when designing apps that contain two or more forms, it's common to display a form as a dialog. A form that is like a dialog is modal. What modal means in right here in this example, all right, is that this form is now a modal form. It won't disappear, or if this is a modal form, it won't disappear until you do an action. Now, if that confuses you, hold on a second. First of all, let's look at one of the biggest differences between these two forms, and you might have noticed it already. The first is this form has the minus sign, the box, and the X for minimize, maximize, and exit. This one has none of them. Why? Because we use the control box, the minimize box, and the maximize box, and they were all set to false. Since they were all set to false, none of them show here. All right. So that's a first thing to just kind of keep in mind. When something is modal, MODAL, it means that you've got to take some action before the thing will go away. You can make a lot of different things modal. All right. So they say when you create a form that'll be displayed as a dialog, you typically set those control box, minimize, and maximize. Okay. You can also set the form border style to fixed dialog. Notice what it says. It prevents the user from resizing the form by dragging the borders. However, it says doing so can cause problems with screens that have different densities. All right. So in other words, even though you can do it, it's one of those things that even though you can, you may not want to. So to display a form as a dialog, you use the new keyword to create an instance of the form. Then you use the show dialog. Does this sound familiar? This is what we just did. Now, the only difference is when we did ours and we did the red, the white, and the blue, when we did all those, we didn't make them modal. We made the current form disappear by using the hide method, and then we created an instance of the new form we wanted and told that form to show using the show dialog method that they talk about right here. All right. Now it says, in addition to modal forms, an app can also have modeless forms where the user can move back and forth between forms as necessary. That's what we did. So why didn't I show you the one that with the modal forms? Because that's what they do at the end of the chapter. So now you'll have seen them both. All right. So again, this is what it'll look like, or hopefully at least, this is what our program is going to look like in a little bit. All right. So you'll notice if you take a look right there, again, this is custom dialog, but this is modal. They don't have a hide statement in there. But form, the name equals new form. All right, then a show dialog. Exactly what we talked about before. All right, it says if you display a form as a dialog, the user must respond to the form before continuing on. As I said, that's what makes it modal. All right. You use the show dialog method to display the form as a dialog. All right. After the user responds to the dialog, execution continues with whatever code you put in next. Okay. All right. How to pass data between a form and a custom dialog. All right. It says the next figure shows how to pass data between forms. In particular, it shows how to get the user response to a custom dialog from the form that displays it. What the heck does that even mean? Well, when you think about it, all right, if basically this payment thing coming up, if we've chosen credit card when we run this, this should show. If we've changed or shown bill customer, all right, I don't think it will show, or vice versa. So in other words, we may want different forms to show depending upon, in fact, let me repeat that and try to say it, I think, correctly. If we choose credit card, this is what's going to come up. Customer, at least. And what I mean is, okay, well, notice we got Mike Smith. Where do we even get that from? We might have a whole list of people in here. All right. And in here, we might have the way they're going to pay. So Mike Smith might pay via credit card. John Doe may pay via bill customer, etc. All right. What we're doing, you probably don't realize this, but what we are doing is we're moving toward not having to go in and run these programs and put in a ton of input data ourselves. We want to use existing input data. And when you do that in one of two ways. You either grab your existing input data, all right, you either grab it from a file, which we'll go over in chapter 17, or you grab it from a database, all right, which we'll go over in chapters 19 through 22. All right, so we will hit on those. All right. Now it says here, figure 1013 shows how to pass data between forms. In particular, it shows how to get the user, etc. And it shows how to use the tag property. Guess what? You already know how to use the tag property. All right. I try to introduce things in this class, not necessarily exactly when the textbook does, but when I think that you're ready and they seem to fit in whatever it is we're going over at that time. All right. So when you display a form as a dialog, the show dialog returns a value that indicates how the user responded to the dialog. All right. The result is determined by the dialog result property of the form, which can be set to any member shown in this figure. We're going to look at that, but before we do, all right. Dialog result dialog. You have been using this all semester. We've always said here, yeah, we want to close the form or exit the program. All right. This kind of in here implies that if dialog equal no, don't do anything. That would be kind of stupid to put that in there, but we could add it. But if you look in here, we've got, oops, dialog result dot, and notice what we have. We've got okay, yes, no, cancel, ignore, abort, compare to, equals, and there's even a bunch that we don't see here. So there's a lot of different things that this can be set to. All right. So far, the only thing we've used is yes, and that's really the only one we're going to continue to use. But there are other options available, and that is what is explained right here. So they talk about the dialog result and what you can use with it. They talk about the tag property, and we've already been working with the tag property. All right. So again, they say you can set it to cancel by setting the cancel property and all the other here that you can use as well. All right. Then it says another way to pass data between a dialog and another form is to use that tag property. Well, we've only been working with a single form thus far. All right. But it is possible that rather than just using the tag property with one form, you can use it with multiple forms. All right. And that's what they say here. Another way to pass data between a dialog and another form is to use the tag property of the dialog. The second statement sets the tag property to something named message. It says, note you must set this property before control returns back to the main form. Once control returns back to the main form, you can get the data that was stored in the tag property as shown. So we'll look at that in just a minute. All right. So they've got that in here. All right. And they're showing it in here. We're going to look at an example of that and how to use that in just a little bit, or we'll do it tomorrow. But please make sure, I've said this to you before. All right. I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record all the time, but that said, there are going to probably be things in here that not purposely, but I don't go over that are still important. I'm trying to hit all the high points with you when I lecture. All right. Do I miss any? I'm sure I do, but not on purpose. So please take the time to read the chapter, look at the examples. And for those of you, I've had people the whole semester, either while you're taking the test or after you've taken the test, etc. And you'll be like, I don't understand this. I know we kind of went over it in class, but I don't know how to do it. Go back and bring up the book apps and take a look at the code that's in there. All right. The next thing that's in here is how to use the message box class. And I believe that the reason the author didn't show this until now was because now they want to be able to show that dialogue. But we've been using that all semester. Now, the only thing I do want to bring up to you, because we have not talked about this, okay? You've done this kind of thing. Dialog box, but they call it button. It doesn't matter. But we've got the message box.show. Then we've got the message right there. Then we've got the title. All right. And it's just payment there. Then you've got a yes, no. We've been using okay, but there's a yes, no. There's a, etc. Yes, no, cancel. The question is the icon. This is the one we haven't talked about. All right. That is what's called the default button. So if that default button is set, then it's got the blue around it like it shows, but then rather than having to click it, you can just hit the enter key. All right. I mean, if you like doing that, fine. Okay. So this isn't new here. You can use the show message of the message box class to display a message. All right. As it says, you use the first three enumerations to specify the buttons and the icon, etc. If you omit the buttons, the OK is displayed by default. I don't ever like doing anything by default. So I always put message box buttons .OK. If you omit the default button, the first one is the default. All right, I don't use defaults in mine. Again, a lot of this stuff, after a while, it just is what you're comfortable with type of thing. I don't like to use defaults when I can help it, just because of the fact that in my career as a professional programmer, there were times I expected the software to run in a default method in a certain way, and it didn't. And when I got called to the carpet on that, if I just turn around and say, well, the software was supposed to do this, but it didn't, my superiors didn't care. In their mind, I screwed up. So, all right. Form closing event. I think that's only a couple pages. Yeah. And then we'll take a break and then we'll come back and look at the code for the payment app. All right. Now, the key word here is this word, but I want you to realize when you work on this, there is both a form closing event and there is a form closed event. So the close either ends with ed or it ends with ing. If you put code in the form closing event, all right, you are putting it in before the form is actually closed. So for instance, all right, if in the form closing event we move that show data thing in there, then every time before we were going to close the form, that would run. But if you put something in the form closed event with the ed on the end, the form's already closed. All right. And many controls will have a closing event. We're going to look at some of that stuff as we go on in here. All right. And they give some examples in here. This is, again, the whole program that they have in this chapter is kind of a contrived example. All right. But we are going to put it in and look at it, etc. anyway. All right. Okay. It is 10:05. let's take till 10:15. I'm going to refresh my water, and we'll finish with this payment app, and then we'll from there we're going to go on, and if nothing else, we'll do program 2.2 then next. Okay, back in 10 minutes. All right, it is just about 10:15. So for the rest of the chapter here, it's about the last 10 pages. They go over the payment app. All right, so they've got the code here, the customer form, etc. All right, and they've got the code for the payment form. Now, there's a lot of code. I think you can see that. I'm not going to type all that in. What I will do is I will massage my program and I will add the code from the book in there. But let's at least discuss that code that's in here. So we will talk about what's in here in the last 10 pages. So my job, I've got at least 3 of them right now that before I go and put this GitHub repo out there today, all right, first I'll have to go in and go to this red, white, and blue version 2 program that I wrote, and I will line up everything and set the start position to center and make sure the buttons are exactly the same position. That won't take very long. I'll do that. All right. Then I'm going to go in and see if I can use that global using statement to just create one thing and call it from there. If I am able to do that, I might make a version 3 of this, and then we'll go over that tomorrow. We'll see. All right, then next, I have to take what I've written so far and add this code that's shown in here. All right, so we've got an entire payment app. All right, so we'll talk about this 10, 15 minutes, whatever it takes. All right, then when we get done, the plan at least on what to do next in here then will be, we will look at program 2-2 or project 2-2. All right, that you have been assigned, and we'll look at that and see what work has to be done, and I'll see at least if I can come in and try to build that particular program from scratch. We'll see how that works. All right, and if we can get done with all that stuff, again, I don't know if we can or not, but if we can get done with all that stuff, all right, then that's pretty much going to be it for the period, except I will show you what your pretest tomorrow will be. Now, in order for you to do this pretest tomorrow, we're going to have to bring in a new control that's not in the book. All right, I'm going to show you how to bring in that control. I'm going to show you how to use that control. You're probably really, maybe I'm wrong, but my guess is at least you're probably really going to like this. And what do I mean by that? The reason that I think that you might really like this is it's going to allow us to bring images into our programs. We're going to use a control that's called the picture box control. All right. Okay. So before we do that, then let's just talk about what's in here. So as it says, the chapter closes by presenting the operation, property settings, and code for a project that contains 2 forms that use the controls and coding techniques we talked about in this chapter. All right. So it says here, figure 1016 shows how the payment app works. Let's do this. Rather than me worrying about going through my copy of this, etc., let's go out. You've got all this code already. All right. And I'm going to go out here. So let's see. I don't want to even go out to it. Yeah, I can do that. All right. I'll go out to here, C#, student download, book apps, chapter 10, payment. So let's bring that one up. Again, this is the one the authors have created. By no means am I attempting to say any of this is mine, because it isn't. So we have 2 forms. We've got the payment form. All right, you've seen this already. And we've got the customer form. So those are our 2 forms. Okay. All right. And I just wanted those up so as we start to go through this, we got code that we can take a look at. As it says, to start, the app displays the customer form. So let's see if we run this. It shows the customer form. There's the bunch of names. So we've got Mike Smith and Nancy Jones. If we choose Mike Smith, all right, or we can choose Nancy Jones. All right, it looks like for the selecting the payment for Nancy Jones, she's a credit card person. For Mike Smith, all right, both of them look like they're credit card people, at least from what I can see. All right, and you'll notice here is one credit card number. Let's see if it's the same for both. So this ends with 727492. And if we go to Nancy Jones, it looks like they might have put the same number in here. All right, all this stuff looks operational. They make theirs a lot smaller than mine. I just like you to be able to read what I'm doing, and that's why I make mine bigger. All right, so let's cancel that and exit. Yeah, we'll save it. You must enter a payment. All right, so you can see they've got a bunch of code in here that's doing validation. I'll tell you what, we won't even exit it. We'll just stay right there then. That's fine. All right. So as it says here, to start, the app displays the customer form. On that form, the user must select the customer from the customer name combo box. All right. Then the user must click the select payment button to display the payment dialog and specify the payment information for that selected customer. I didn't really do that, but we will momentarily. Within the payment dialog, the user can select to change the customer's credit card and then enter the required information, or they can bill the customer directly. In either case, as it says, the user can also indicate whether the selected method should be the default billing method, and that is by clicking the checkbox. All right. To complete the payment program, the user clicks the OK button. The control is then returned to the customer form, and the payment information is displayed on the form. To save the payment information, you click the Save button. Okay. I mean, at least as far as I can tell, it sounds pretty straightforward. And you'll notice the difference between these. All right. So here's a customer form. All right. Change to credit card. Okay, fine. Credit card, so we can print all that information out from here. All right. On the other hand, when somebody is a bill customer, you'll notice that that's in here, everything that's in here is grayed out, except the use as default billing method. So you cannot select a credit card type. You cannot select a credit card number. You cannot select a credit card month or year expiration date. Why? Because we're choosing bill customer. Now, they don't show it here, but what we could have on here would be another form that would come up that would basically have the person's name, address, city, state, zip, etc. All right, so that's just another thing that could be added to here. All right, so the customer name combo box lets you select the customer. The select payment is our radio buttons, lets you specify the payment as being credit card or bill customer. If the credit card option is selected, the user must select a credit card type, enter a credit card number, and select an expiration month and year. If the bill is selected, everything is disabled. We already mentioned that. The user can also indicate if a billing method is to be the default or not. When the user clicks the OK button, control returns to the customer form, and that information is saved in the payment method label. Now, notice what it says in the note. The app doesn't actually save the data the customer enters. In a real production app, you would save this information to either a file, chapter 17, or a database, chapters 19 through 22. All right. So next, as it says, they show you the property settings. I'm not going to, you can look at them yourselves. This is what they name things. I'm sure mine are at least somewhat similar, but some of them could easily be different. And it's no biggie one way or the other. All right. So the following figure then will present the code for the customer form. All right. It says after the code that Visual Studio generates, a global Boolean variable named isDataSaved is declared and set to true. So that would be over here. There it is. All right. This variable indicates whether the data that's currently displayed has been saved or not. It's set to false in the event handler for the text changed event of the payment label and in the event handler in the select index changed event for the customer name combo box. I believe what they're saying is if you either change customers or you change the payment type from billed to credit card or from credit card to billed, all right, then that is data saved is going to go from true to false. Okay. All right. When the customer form is loaded, the event handler for the load event adds two names to the customer combo box. You already saw that. All right. In an actual production app, as it says, the combo box could conceivably contain thousands of names. Now, the other thing too that you have to realize, let me run this for you, is when we get to that point and we have a program that's looking more like this, there's something you have to realize about what's in here. Okay. This right here, this is basically the value that's displayed. That's not necessarily going to be the value that's going to be saved in, this isn't how, okay, let me trying to say this in the way that'll make the most sense possible. True or false, we could have multiple Mike Smiths in here. I'd say that's definitely true. All right. Yes, we could have multiple Mike Smiths, right? I mean, that makes, to me at least, that makes sense. Let's cancel that. All right. So even though what gets displayed in here, or what's shown might not be the way that that person is being saved. All right. For instance, all right, with my credit card, my guess is could easily be thousands of Jeffrey P. Scotts. I know that's a scary thought, but I mean, they're all different people, of course. So the way that I am known in my credit cards database is through my card number. All right. So even though the name, if somebody was going to be inputting information, they might have something like this. That doesn't mean that internally, the way that you're going to refer to somebody or something is going to necessarily be by their name. All right. I'll just leave it at that. All right. When the user clicks the select payment button, the click event handler for the button displays the payment form as a dialog. If the user clicks the OK, the payment data is displayed in the payment method label on the customer form. So as you can see, this data is stored in the tag property of the payment form. What does that mean? Again, let's go over to here. It's still running, so let's stop it. And let's bring up the payment form. And what you'll notice in here is if I click in there, in that credit card type, somewhere in here, I think it's in this one. Maybe it is in the other one, but I thought it'd be in this one. All right. I'm looking to see if any of these have been set. The tag property has been set. So far, no. All right, so none of them are set. Let's look at the other one. And I'm not seeing anything that is actually set in here for the tag property. So let's go back to the book. Right? When the user clicks the select payment button, the click event handler for that button displays the payment form as a dialog. All right. Then the user clicks the OK button. The data is displayed in the payment method label on the customer form. The payment method label on the customer form. So on the customer form, the payment method label right there. As you can see, this data is stored in the tag property of the payment form. Well, what I'm wondering is if we click on the form itself, no, that doesn't have a tag property either. I'll have to go back and double check this. I should have done a better job of reading it first myself. All right. If the user clicks the save button, the click event handler for that button calls is valid data. That should sound familiar because that's what we used back in chapter 7. This checks that the user has selected a customer and has entered a payment. If it has, it calls save data. Says this method sets the selected index property to -1, so no customer is selected. It clears the payment method label. Then it sets the is data saved to true, and it moves the focus back to the combo box. And again, as they say, in an actual production app, you'd be saving this information to a file or to a database rather. The last method, it says, is executed when the user tries to close the form. So this is the code. So as we look in here, again, this is in our customer form. All right. So in the load event, we're adding those two names into our combo box. Anytime we change, we do a text changed. All right. The payment, we're resetting this set thing back to false again because we haven't saved it. We might make a change. With a select index event, again, we're setting that and we're setting that. So what's the difference? Well, this is if we're double clicking on a label. This is if we're double clicking on a combo box item. We're doing the same thing in both, except we are also taking the text in the case of the combo box, and we're taking that payment stuff that was up here and we're clearing it out. All right, if we click the select payment button, notice what we're doing. We're creating a new payment form. Then we're showing that new payment form. And again, because of the fact that we're not hiding the existing one, this new one will be shown modally. And as it says there, if the select button equals OK, all right, then we're taking the payment form dot tag, all right, question mark dot toString, and we're setting it equal to the payment text. I believe what they're saying is, again, when we take a look in here, that's mine, I'm sorry, is they're checking is to see if there's something in here or not. All right. Now, again, could I be wrong? Of course I can be wrong. All right. We're gathering the information from there if their credit card. All right. And we're going to display the information in there. In other words, the card they selected, the card number, etc. I believe that's what they're talking about. All right. If everything was valid, okay, we call save data. In save data, as it says there, we set our names combo box to -1, so no name is showing. We take that payment area and blank it out.
We set is saved to true, meaning that we just did save what we were working on. And we've set the focus to that combo box. Hopefully that made at least a little bit of sense. All right. The is valid data. Well, this has got, it's not what we used before. String that holds the error message to the empty string. Then it says there, if CBO dot selected index equal -1. Well, but then we haven't selected a customer. All right, so as it says, you must enter a customer. If the LBL payment dot text, if we haven't selected a payment method, we've got to do that one. Then we're going down here and we're saying, was either one of these messages set? Was error message set here or set here? If it was, we want a message box that shows that. We want to set success to false. So if either one of these are actually executed and error message is not empty, we want to set success to false, do a message box, and then return. If all these checks pass, in other words, if there was stuff in there, etc., we'll skip all the ifs and we'll go right from the bool success and the error message, and we'll go down to return success, which then will return true. All right, exit is pretty much the way they do their exits. And notice in the form closing event, this is where they come in and basically say, hey, you got some data you haven't saved yet. Do you want to save it? All right. So the final thing that's shown in here then is the code for the payment form. As it says, figure 1019 will show that. All right. It says, so let's just take a look at it. All right, so we've got it here. Is there stuff on the next page too? And there, and there. So it's 3 pages, and then we're finished with the chapter. Okay. So here's the payment form. All right. So the first thing we have is what do we want to do in the load event? Well, you can see very similar to what I did in the load event, in that what they're doing here is, again, they're manually adding the credit card types where I put them in an array and then loop through the array and put them in there. We're again setting the selected index to 0. Then we're filling up the months in here and setting that to 0. Then we're filling up the years and again setting it to 0. So when I say to 0 on all these, we're setting it to the first value that's in there. All right. In the OK button, again, we're calling if is valid, call save data. Here's the is valid. So we have to check for anything that conceivably can fail. So if no credit card was selected, you want that message. If the credit card was selected, but there's no number selected, all right. If the credit card is selected and the number is selected, all right, was a month selected, was a year selected. So when you think about this, if nothing at all was selected, it looks like we could have 1, 2, 3, 4 things print. If you did select a credit card type but nothing else, you could have 3 things print. If you selected a credit card type and you put in a number, but you didn't fill in an expire year or an expire month, then the first part would be done, but the last 2 wouldn't be done. So again, if there are any error messages, we would set success to false, have a message box that would show all of our errors and return false. If none of these checks were true, then we'd go by success equal true. So we'd skip the whole in body of this if, and we jump down and we return true. And again, hopefully that at least makes some sense to you. Finally, add excuse me, and in save data. All right. They're going to basically fill up that payment type thing that you payment. So in the save data, it looks like, at least, like they're filling up this. So that'll have in there charge to credit card, and then they'll have the type, it'll have the number, it'll have the expire date with both month and year. Otherwise, it'll say send bill to customer. All right. Either way, then it'll fall down to here. And it'll show rather whether or not, all right, whether or not there has been something, all right, whether or not there has been something that has been charged, whatever you want to call it. All right. Did we check that we wanted this to be our default? All right. Okay. And tag is going to be equal to that message. They're using tag, I guess, differently than I did. And that's okay. That's fine. I've shown you how to use the tag for controls. Okay. And in our billing checked, this is saying basically, if credit card is checked, all this stuff should be true. And otherwise, it's not credit card, so it's bill to customer. So all now I found an old copy that I wrote of program 2.2. All right. And it works. However, I'm not sure I did it the way the author did. I might have kludged it and done my own stuff. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change around what I'm going to do. And that is, I'm not going to talk today. I am not going to talk today about 2.2. I will begin tomorrow's lecture by doing program 2.2. I want to say that again. Now that's part of your homework. So when I begin this tomorrow, there will actually be two videos tomorrow. In the first video, I will go and create what is in program 2.2. That is, or project 2.2. That is this one. All right, I will create that. Now you'll notice it has a student scores form. It has an add new student form. It has an update student form. It has an add score and an update score form. I don't know if that means there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or not. I'll have to go back and look at my copy. But we will do this first thing. All right. This will be saved as a private video. And those of you who are in the class, you will get an invite to that video. Once we get done with that, we're going to go in and we're going to do the pretest. Now, I have not sent you the pretest yet, but let me show you what it'll be. All right. Now it says for this pretest, you will create a new contrived project. What does that mean? That means that after you get done with this, you might think this was really a stupid project. All right. But the reason that I want to show it to you is because it is going to allow us to really get into talking about the use of the picture box and the use of bringing in images. And I think that's important. All right, so let me bring it up first. I think I've got it, my copy of it here. Let me look. So let's see. All right.
Like I said, it's contrived, meaning it's kind of a silly project, okay? But when you run it, this is what it looks like. It's called a match the president's game. So for instance, if I come out here and I choose Ronald and I choose Reagan, that was one of our presidents, and I click match. All right, notice that nothing is here and nothing is there. So if I choose match, I get that Reagan was a Republican and there's his picture. On the other hand, if I choose Ronald Roosevelt, who doesn't exist, then we get no image available because there isn't somebody by that name and they don't have a party affiliation. So that's what this will be. The new thing that's in here is right here. All right, we'll talk about that in just a second. Clear does just that. Exit does what you'd expect it to do. When you do help, there are multiple different ways you can do this. I could click here and have a message box come up. I could have my help come up that way. Or I could have made this form bigger and maybe grabbed the section over here and made it a text box. And when you click help, that could have come up. The way that it's instituted here is when you click help, you bring up a different form. All right. So maybe if we wanted, we could make this be the main form as opposed to the other one. So there's a lot of ways that this could be done. All right. So we have here some things that tell you how to play this. All right, notice if I click home, I go back to here, so I can iterate back and forth between the two. I think I've set this to be highlighted, and I shouldn't have, but that's okay. And then notice we also have three different things here. So I'm gonna, if I choose Facebook and Twitter, for example, and I choose exit, it says, do you really want to exit? If I say yes, it says you follow us on Facebook and Twitter. So you can see the ones that were chosen there. All right. So what I'm going to ask you to do for tomorrow, and you will get this sent to you. You will get this piece of paper here, or electronic piece of paper sent to you that has a picture so you can see label, 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 combo box, group box with 3 radio buttons inside of it, picture box, and 4 buttons. That's the first form. All right. And then on the second form, you can see again, we've got a label. This is, I believe it's a text box, multi-line text box that's read only. This is another label, button, button, group box, and 3 check boxes. All right. So when we look through this, create a C# Windows form app, call it pretest. Guess I should have made that 911. All right. And call the project presidents. Create a simplistic. Now I say very simplistic. And what I mean about that is that the game is simplistic. I don't mean the code is or that the UI is. What I'm saying is the game itself is a very, very simplistic game. All right. So please see the next 2 pages for the way each form should look before the program is run. And then the 2 pages after that will show actual program runs. So pages 2 and 3 are in here. So here's page 2. That's the main form. And this is kind of what I've already mentioned to you, but let's just look at it. From the main form, the first name and last name are in combo boxes. As it says, these should be pre-populated programmatically from arrays that you have been given. All right. If the first name and last name match, in other words, if I put in Barack for a first name and Obama for a last name, you should show the associated image. If they do not match,
you should show the no image available image. In addition, as it says there, if you find a match, make sure the right radio button is selected. So for example, for Donald Trump, it would be Republican. For Joe Biden, it would be Democrat type of an idea. When the help button is clicked, the second form, the help screen should appear. All the buttons, as it says, radio buttons, everything, combo boxes, etc., should all work. You should set the tab order, the cancel button, the accept button, and the start position as well. All right. And then finally for this, for the other form that's here, as it says for this help screen, all buttons and checkboxes should work. When the home button is clicked, the home screen should appear. So you should go back to the other one. If the exit button is clicked and the user chooses exit, the program should first print out if you've checked anything on the follow us. So if you've checked any of the ones here, it should print that out first to say whether you're following them. Again, like I said, contrived program. All right. Again, all buttons should be operational. Again, tab order, cancel button, accept button, start position should all be set. As it says, try to modularize this as much as possible. Have your buttons act like drivers. All right. Use good function variable and constant names. So here's a run where I put in Joe Biden. It said he was a Democrat. Okay. As it says again, there's not much to this game as the president's names are already in the correct order. You could mix them up if you wanted to. I don't care. Please try to set your form to look as much like this one as possible. Remember to create an image folder. We're going to go over how to do that right now. And change the paths. We'll go over that right now. All right. So again, this is a running version of this since I've checked all three. It says you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Okay. And that's it. Now, there's a lot to that. Even though the premise of the program itself is pretty simplistic, there's a lot to the program. Now, I'm going to try to do something in here, and you know me well enough that sometimes when I try doing things, they're flaming successes, and sometimes when I try doing things, they're flaming failures. So I'm going to try to come in here right now and create a new project to show you quickly how we're going to add images to a program. All right, so let me close all of this. And the program I make is going to be, again, a simplistic program as far as the content goes. All right, so let me go in and create a new Windows Form project. And I tried to think of something during the break that would be really simple. So I'm going to call this coin flip. Right? And there it is. And we're going to do a couple things here. All right. And I'm going to come in here and let's see. First, as always, I'm going to change the name of my form. We'll call it FRM coin flip. Yes, we want to change it everywhere. All right. And let's see. As always, I want to come in here and just change the color so it's not that ugly gray. Now we'll use this. Maybe that's uglier. I don't know. We're going to have, we'll make 3 buttons in here. I'm literally, you may or may not believe me, because a lot of times I do stuff ahead of time. I've done none of this. I'm doing all of this off the top of my head. That's why I said it could be a flaming failure. We'll see. All right, so these will be my 3 buttons. We'll go over what they are in just a minute. All right, then I'm going to have, I'm going to come in here, and for the first time, you're going to see this, and that is a picture box control. Right here. It looks kind of like a group box. I'm going to try to somewhat center it, but that should work. All right, let me move these down a little. I'm going to again change the color, the background color, so it stands out. I'll make it a shade darker. All right, and I'm going to put in a label down here. Pretty simple interface because I'm done with. Pretty simple interface, except let me go over here to the auto size, reset it to false. There we go. All right, again, I'll make that shade darker as well. All right. Doesn't look too bad. I'm going to grab everything here. And as always, I'm going to go in and change the size. Why, but it's not showing me that there. So maybe I can't change the size on the picture box like that. So I'm going to change this. So to font, 24 bold, Arial. Okay, so that's all done. All right. I think, at least taking a quick look at it, I think it looks okay. So I'm going to lock my interface into place. All right. I'm going to change my names here. This is going to be PB for picture box. So PB, and I'm going to call it PB heads or tails. All right. This is going to be my results. So I'm going to call it LBL results. All right. This, rather than calculate, I'm going to just call it flip. So it's going to be BTN. I'll just call it flip coin. All right. And we will put the text on there for that button as flip coin. All right. This one will be clear. And this one will be exit. Very similar to stuff we've done in the past. What's new, of course, is the picture box. All right, now, a couple things as we go on here. First of all, I don't want there to be any text in here. Okay, so this results, I just want it to be empty there. Okay, and again, because I'm the way I am, I'm going to take this and I want to set the text align. So it's going to be giving my message that'll be centered. So that's done. I will come text, and we're going to call it Chapter 10 Coin Flip with Picture Box Control. There that is. So you can see it right there. Okay, so what else do I want to do? Well, the usual kind of stuff that we do, in that I'm going to set my accept button to BTN flip coin. I'm going to set my cancel button to BTN clear. I'm going to set my start position to center screen. All right, and I'm going to set my tab order. And I don't, the only ones I care about are these three. These are basically read only anyway. So I'm going to make it 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's do that. I don't even know if I can set the tab order here. and I can't. Okay, that's good. So view tab order. So that's all done. Let me move over here to my code mode. I'm going to come here just so I can run it, see if it's centered. As I set the right project, of course. Okay, so that's it. Like I said, it won't look like much, but it'll be fine to show you some of these concepts. All right, let me get rid of this. And I'm going to come back to here and do my flip coin, do my clear, and do my exit. Again, for that exit, I'm just going to grab, because I have it saved from here, that exit program or not. All right, for the clear, we'll write a quick little clear all, even though it's be very short. So this will be my clear all. And all I really want to do in here is say my picture box dot, let's see, I don't know if there's a clear in here or not for this. And it doesn't look like there is. I don't want there to be anything there, and I don't remember how to clear this. We'll look at that in just a minute. So let's see if we can do it from here. I'll have to look that up. We'll do that in a minute. All right. But I also want to say, not txt, there's no text box, LBL results dot text equal double quote. That's it. So let's go in. I can go back to another program and find it out, but let's let Google figure it out for me. So how to clear a C# picture box control. Clear picture box from Stack Overflow. You can say the image is equal to null, it looks like. All right, that looks like that's what they want you to do. So let's do that. Equal null. Whoops. Dot image equal null. Okay, so that's all done. So we have to flip our coin. But before we do that, well, we need something to put in here. That should make sense. All right, so let's go out to Google Images. All right, and I'm going to put in here quarter heads. Okay, and it doesn't matter which one of these I grab. Okay, but I'll just grab the first one that's here. And can we save this image? They have given me save link as, but not save image as. So let's go down US Mint here. Here we go. Save image as. And what I'm going to do is, for now, I'm going to make a folder on my desktop that I'm going to call images. And I'm going to put what goes in there, I'm going to call it heads.jpg. All right, so there's the heads. Now let's do a quarter tails. Try to come down, kind of like I did before, and find the one that said US Mint. Or hopefully I will. It looks like it'd be about that one, but we'll see. And again, we'll say save image as, and this one will be tails.jpg. All right, well, that's first thing. All right. Now let's take a quick look and see if those images are the same size, because if they're not, it'll look funky. So this is 225 by 225. This is 220 by 229. They're close, but they're not the same. So I'm going to open this one up in Paint. And I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go to Home and Resize and remove the thing that says maintain the ratio. And for pixels in here, I'm going to put 225 and 225. So it did change it a little bit, but the look and feel, I think, is still the same. Now, after doing that, we've got 225 by 225 and 225 by 225. So now they are the same size. Now, I'm going to show you how to bring these in, and there's two ways of doing it. So I'm going to show you both of them because you could use either one. The first thing I'm going to do here, and this is the president's one, so you can see I already have images in there. So let me close that for now so this doesn't get too confusing. All right. And we'll close this payment thing as well. This is our program here. So I'm going to come in and under the name of our project, which is CoinFlip, I am going to right mouse click. I'm going to choose Add, and I'm going to go to New Folder. Now, historically, when you do this, in the folder either IMGS or IMAGES, all lowercase. So that's what I'm going to do, a lowercase IMAGES. Okay, so I made my own images folder. All right. Now, I want to fill it up, and I've already got the stuff I want to use to fill it up with. So I'm going to right mouse click on the name of my new folder, Images, and I'm going to choose Add, but I want to choose Existing Item. Now I want to go back onto my desktop, and I want to find this thing we just created called Images. And you'll notice it's empty. No, it's not. But right now it's looking for C# files. I have to click this down arrow here and tell it that I want it to look for image files. And lo and behold, there are our two images. Now, if I highlight them both and click Add, now I've brought them into my program. All right. I believe you could also just bring the whole folder in. The way I showed you is the most straightforward way that I have found of doing this. So that's all I'm going to show you is that. All right. So I've got that in there. Now, what I want you to understand is I'm going to right mouse click in here and I'm going to choose properties. These are the properties for my image. And the reason I'm showing you this, I'm going to make this real big, is what I want to show you is this file path. This is the path to where that image lives. All right, so I'm going to show it to you inside in here. So this is the path. Whoa, this is the path to my file. What the heck? There we go. And it's pretty big. C:users back C:\users \JP Scott \desktop, etc. And you can see at the end of it, it's got heads.jpg. Well, you may or may not have already figured this out. Let's see. But if I come down to here, the other one is tails.jpg. So those are the two paths in my program. Okay. All right. I want to be able to set my image to one of those two things. Now, think about this. All right, please. That is the following. When I play a game here, when I click flip coin, what I want is I want the system to give me a random number. I'm going to choose 1 and 2. And 1 will be heads and 2 will be tails. If it gives me a 1, I want it to say here, heads wins, and I want it to show me the head. If it brings me a 2, excuse me, I want it to say tails wins and show me the picture of a tails. All right. hopefully I've put that in a way where at least it pretty much makes sense. All right. So we're trying to be very modular here. So you notice our clear calls clear all, our exit calls exit program or not. So here, inside of our flip coin, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to generate a random number. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that int, we'll call it heads or tails. Heads or tails equal generate random number. All right, so that's going to have to, that routine is going to have to return an int. All right. Then we'll say, we'll do it like this. There's a lot of ways of doing it, but I'm going to say string winner equal find the winner. And then finally, we'll just say show the winner. Again, you're going to get all this code. So for now, I'm going to comment this out and comment this out until I write them. All right. So this is private int generate random number. All right. You already know how to do a lot of this stuff in that we have to say here random, rand, or whatever you want to call that, equal new random. All right. And then int number equal, I like to just use rand, not random, just rand. That's just a personal preference. So int number equals rand dot next. I want it to start with 1 and I want it to go up to but not include 3. So it should give me a number that's either a 1 or 2. That's what that should do. And then return number. Okay. So that should return to here either a 1 or a 2. Okay. That's the whole routine. So now we've got string winner, find the winner. All right. So we're going to say here, private string, find the winner. All right. And what we're going to say is, let's see, that will need to know the number that we generated in order for it to work. So we'll need to pass it in there, heads or tails. We'll go over the whole program when we're all done. Int, I'm just going to call it hot, heads or tails. All right. So if hot equal, I'm going to show you 2 ways to write this. So if it equals 1, again, there's so many different ways that we can write this. I'm going to go string W equals nothing. That's going to be the winner. So if hot equals a 1, all right, we'll say W equal heads. Else if hot equal 2, W equal tails. Finally, just return W. Okay. Now, if I didn't want to go to all that trouble, so I'm going to comment this out. I'll leave it in there, but I'll comment it out. All of this. All right. In fact, we'll do it like this. Yeah, this is good. All right. And I'm going to comment all of this out. And I'm going to come in here and say this. This string W, I'm going to say W equal, and we'll check hot equal 1. If that's the case, heads, otherwise tails. All right. A lot less code writing this as opposed to writing this and then return W. Either one of those
should work. Should. Now, I don't even need to go and initialize that. That's why this thing is coming out gray like that. There. All right, so finally we've got show the winner. All right, so let's write that. It doesn't have anything passed into it and it's not returning anything. So it's a private void show the winner. And in fact, we'll need to know who won. We'll need to know if it's heads or if it's tails. All right, and that again right here, let's see, we've got in here right now winner. So we will pass winner in to show the winner. Okay, so that will need the string. We'll call it W again for winner. All right, so I will write this as an if W equal heads. Well, what do we know? The one thing we know is LBL results should be equal to W plus 1. All right, but remember one thing that we've learned recently, that's results.text, that's why I'm getting the error, all right, is remember we learned how to use string interpolation. So let's put in a $sign, and then in our double quotes here, we'll put the W in here like that, and then we don't need the plus, we can just do it like that. Okay, all right, else, and we'll say the same thing. Let's see, if W equal heads, and we say heads 1, it should say heads. And actually, either way, this should work. We should be able to just say this, and it should either say heads 1 or tails 1. I shouldn't even have to check this. I should be able to write the whole thing like this. Like that. All right. So that'll show the winner. Now, if we run it now, we aren't doing anything yet with the, we're not doing anything yet with our image. All right, but let's see if it does appear to be working or not. We could keep track of how many heads won and how many tails won, etc. if we wanted to, but we don't have to do that. All right, so that part's all working. So what we have to worry about then is how to set this up. Now, we could go to the trouble of doing all of this. In other words, we could go through all the trouble of saying, let's see, for this show the winner. All right. So we could say, trying to figure out the best way to show this to you where it'll make sense. So let's see. We've got find the winner, and this is show the winner. Okay, this will give us our message. That's fine. But I am going to put an if in here that says if W equal, if it equal heads, all right, then what we want to show in here, no, I don't want that in this if statement. So what I want to show in here is I want to set the image to heads. So I could say PB heads or tails dot image. And if you remember from a long time ago, I'm going to put this on a new line. I'm going to say equal, and I'm going to put it on a new line here. Don't worry, that error will go away in a minute. But I'm going to grab this whole thing, copy it to the clipboard, and put it in there as a big string. That. Now, it may give me an error. Don't worry if it does. All right. When I've got these double lines in here, I'm going to change that. I'm going to add at the beginning here an ampersand. And I thought that would go away, and it didn't. So it's giving me an error. So let's see. Cannot convert a string to system.drawing.image. All right. Show potential fixes. Convert to a raw string. That didn't do diddly. Introduce constant, introduce parameter. Well, and everything had been going so well up until this point too, so let's get rid of these two and put that back in there. I'm going to try to change this to slash. If it doesn't work, it's okay. I'll go and look at how I did it in the other one. We'll get it to work. All right. So what I'm saying is I want the image to be equal to this image that I got from here with this path. All right. Well, you can already see that it's not working. All right. So let me quickly check the one that we'll go over tomorrow to see, because the fix should be pretty simple. Now, what I did for mine, if you notice, this will be the one we do tomorrow, okay? We've got first names in one array, the last names in another array, the parties in another array. And now look at this. I've got an array of strings, and you can see the way that they look in here. All right. So I'm going to try to do it the same way that I've done it here. So I'm going to say string bracket bracket images, and I'm going to put both those in there. If you don't know what I mean, just please watch for a second. Okay. All right. So at the beginning, I'm going to put in that string bracket bracket images equal. All right. And then inside of here, I'm going to put in those two paths that are shown, not there, the ones that are here. Come on, that are here. All right, so for the first one, I'm going to put this inside of double quotes with a comma on the end. Then in this one thing, I'm going to get rid of the blank space in between them. And I'm going to, because I know the other one works. Okay, when we did those over here, we used forward slashes. Okay. So I will manually change all my backslashes to forward slashes. A little bit of a pain in the butt, but that's not a big thing. We don't have to go over it now, but we will tomorrow talk about why backslashes, forward slashes, etc. And it has to do with the way that Windows saves things as opposed to the way Mac saves things, or Apple as opposed to the way Linux saves things. All right. So let's see, almost done. All right, hopefully I didn't screw that up. Find out shortly. So there are our two images. So it's the whole path that I gave you before, and one is heads.jpg and one is tails.jpg. Okay, that's good. Now let me see how I brought that into the program here. So I apologize, I should have looked at it first. So let's see. Man, that's what I need. It's going to give me an error in here, but we'll fix it. Well, this, put in this, like I said, it's going to probably give me an error, but we'll fix it. So this was called PB heads or tails dot image equal, and I want to say image dot from file. All right. And it was images, put a 0 here. Oh, I think that's images with a lowercase I. Oh, come on. This should have been so flippin' easy, but I'm making it so much harder than it has to be. So we're going to fix that error in a minute. So and that'll be a 0 and that'll be a 1. All right, so in English, before we figure out what the error is, what we're saying is we want to set the images, we want it to go out, and in our images array, either find the first element that's in there or the second element that's in there and set that to the image that's in our picture box. That's what we want to do. As you can see, it's still giving me an error. Now, let's see if we can figure out why it's giving me an error. Okay, I think I know what it is. It's okay. Just moving where the error is around, I guess. All right. Show. Okay, that's it. I need to use system.drawing. I need to add that. There was my problem. One of my many problems. All right. Now, this should work and we should get a picture in there. The picture may be very small, and I'll show you how to adjust that as well in just a minute. Okay, heads 1, tails 1. So you can see it's working. Good. We can clear, etc. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is to show you this. I'm going to go back to the picture box control itself. And in the picture box control, there are a bunch of things that are set here, a bunch of different properties. And the one I'm going to look for when I find, let's see if we can find it from over here. I mean, the program's done, but I just want to make the picture so that it adjusts its size. Well, again, it's not my goal here to waste your time, but there is something in the image box itself where you can adjust the size. All right, let's try. I'm going to be perfect, but we'll do it for now. Not what I want to do. All right, you can see that I should be able to take that in here, and I should be able to do a couple things. First of all, let's change it. Let's take the background color that's here and let's change it back to the regular background color. I think that'll help a bit, like that. And it looked like I should make it a little bit smaller too. About like that, I'd say. All right. Okay. Not exactly fantastic program, but you get the idea. So let's take a few minutes and go over the entire program. All right. And then if I can figure out what the darn property is on that, I could look it up too, I guess. But if I can figure that out, then I'll fix that when I'm fixing the other stuff before I stick it out there into the repo. All right, but one of the properties in here lets you set up the style. But I looked in here and there wasn't a style. And there's different things that you can set up, and I wanted to choose stretch. I'm not going to worry about it right now. The program is okay as it is. So let's look at it from the top. Okay. All right. We needed to add the using system.drawing because that allowed us to use the images.image that you saw down here. All right. Now, was it necessary to put these images inside of an array? The answer is no, it was not. All right. Now, just so you see this, had we gone in here, I'm going to go make a copy of this. Had it come out like this, like you saw before. All right. What you'll notice, I'll have to put a comma there, I guess, is I still don't get any errors. All right. And I don't get any errors. There are two slashes here because the first slash says treat the second one like a slash. Otherwise, it would be looking for something like a backslash n or a backslash t. Now, occasionally it'll come out and it'll look like this. This might give me errors, but I'm going to show you the fix right away. Or what I hope will be the fix. So you get all these errors if it's just in there. It's just a single backslash. So if you preface or put an @ sign at the beginning, that all goes away. Why am I taking the time to show you this? Because there's three ways that you can refer to things in a path. You can do it the Windows way, which is to use forward slashes between each one of your folders or directories or whatever. All right. You can use, as I showed you before, backslashes. All right. And that's the way that it's done with a backslash as opposed to a forward slash in Linux land. So Unix, the Linux operating system. Or if it does come through with just a single backslash, as I just showed you, to fix that, then we have to preface at the beginning of this. All right, at the beginning of this, we have to preface this because it's giving us an error on each one. But if we put an @ sign at the beginning, that turns all that off. All right. So all I'm trying to show you there is different ways that we can put in the same information. So we have this array with two strings in it.
The first is a path to our heads image. The second is the path to our tails image. Okay, hopefully that all makes sense. Looks like I may have lost the curly brace here. Maybe I did not. Oh, there it is. All right. So when we've got flip coin, when we click the button that's called flip, BTN flare, flip coin, I guess. All right. The first thing we do is we generate the random number. That's all the generate random number is doing, is it's going to return to us either a 2 or a 1, a 2 or a 1, a 1 or a 2. We do that by calling this routine, instantiating the random class, calling it rand, and then our number is that rand object dot next. So that means this should start with 1, but it should end before 3. So give me a number greater than or equal to 1 and less than 3. All right. Since it's ints that we're using, it's going to be either a 1 or a 2. So that's what that does. Then we've got our find the winner. And that was pretty simple. We cut it down to just these 3 lines. Or you could do it as an if that makes more sense to you. All right. Now we passed in here hot. That was the heads or the tails. If the hot that we passed in was the word heads, all right, then that W is going to be equal to heads. That's the winner. Otherwise, tails is going to be the winner, and we pass that back. So when we get done with these 2 routines, heads or tails has the number 1 or the number 2, and winner has the string heads or the string tails. All right, and then we call show the winner. And that says if it's heads, we say that we want to set the image for our picture box to image. That's, that's a type image dot. We want it to go from a file. It's really not a file, but that's the way they use it. It says go out to our images array and use the 0th element, which was heads. If it's tails, go out and use the 1 element, which is tails. And then it is either going to say this W here, remember that we pass in, is either the word heads or it's the word tails. So this is either going to say heads 1 or tails 1. All right. Now, if there's an interest, so I'm going to show you something. We're just about finished and I'll be done. All right. But if there's an interest in what I'm about to show you, drop me an email, say, yeah, I'd like to learn that. Or if I don't hear from anybody, I won't do it. But I want to show you something that I've done with students in the past. All right. Sometimes it's nice to just break away for a day and go through a program with stuff we've learned, but you don't have to turn in. You can just watch and hopefully learn something. So I'm going to come in here and let's see. I'm going to go to my desktop. It's going to take longer to find this file probably than it will be to show it to you. When I was teaching back in the classroom, every year before the pandemic, we would have students come in from Lewis and Clark. And one of the years that they came in, they were studying C# and they wanted to do a C# application. So this is the one that I wrote with them. And I'll be more than happy to take a period out and write it with you if you're so inclined. And if you're not, again, totally fine. What it is it's a simulation of the magic 8-ball that you can buy in a store. All right, why it hasn't found it yet? I don't think I've given it a wrong spelling or anything. Nope, magic 8-ball, nope. But I'll show you what it looks like.
And if for some reason it goes through here and it doesn't find it, I know I've got it someplace else. I will find it. I will show you. Okay. Not today, then, and I have to show it to you tomorrow. So while we're waiting here, all right, this is what we did today. We went through chapter 10. When we went through chapter 10, we discussed several things. So there it is. We'll find it in just a second. We'll look at it. But I don't know why I kicked myself off, but I did. All right. So when we went through chapter 10 today, we did go through several things. And we also went through a couple things that were not in the book. So you should hopefully at least have somewhat of a comfort level of what a combo box is, what a list box is, what a check box is, what a radio button is, and what group boxes are. You should now also know how to create 2 or more forms in the same project. All right. And in addition, the last thing that we just talked about again was was working with a picture box. So let me try to bring this out there. Hopefully this is the right one. It's mine. So let's see. I think this is the correct one. Looks like it is at least. All right. So let me run it. There could be a pathing problem. I don't know. It's not a super long program, not even 300 lines, and I put a boatload of comments in there. There could be 100 lines of comments. All right, but let's see. Let's see if it works first of all. So here's the Magic 8 Ball. There's our splash screen. And here it is. So for example, will it rain today? Now it is giving me a path thing. Let me quickly, I'll do it fast, but let me change my path. And I should only have to change it in 1 or 2 places, and then you should be able to see it in action. If you're not interested, just tune me out, turn me off, whatever, that's up to you. So here's the images, and I can grab any one, and again, go to properties and find the path. All right, so let's see. That should be users, JP Scott, desktop, just Magic 8 Ball, and images. Get rid of that. So that should fix that. That should fix that. I think that's the only 2 places I have to fix, but we'll see. So file, save all. Let me run it again. This even brings sound in so that you can see it. Okay, so again, will it rain today? It is okay. Like the regular Magic 8 Ball, not all the answers make a lot of sense. So I can reset it. No, there's the problem again. There was another place. So I've got to get rid of this open house. That should fix that. So again, I'll say, was today's lecture helpful? Wait for it, which makes no sense, but reset the form. Try it again. Was today's lecture helpful? Absolutely. So you see that. So if you think that you might be interested in having us create this, all right, now I'll show you all the stuff that I did. I'll give you all the source code. This is
totally my creation. I'm not saying it's great or anything. All right. But I'll be more than happy to spend a day of class going through this with you. Let me know. Okay. So with that said, it's about 11:45. So we've been going with only 2 breaks for 3 hours and 45 minutes. So you remove those 2 breaks, we've been going for 3 hours and 20 minutes. All right. So that's it for today. I'm going to clean up the stuff I told you that I was going to give you. Not this one right now, but I can give you that one later too. But I will clean up all the stuff we worked on today. Let me close this and close this. File, save all here. I don't know why that's still showing it like that, but it is. Should be okay. All right, so on the stuff we worked on today in class, I have to clean up. I'll clean up this Heads Tails program. I think it's in pretty decent shape right now. But the red, white, and blue, the version 2, I'll clean that one up. And I will go back and massage my program so I can bring in the author stuff with the payments and get it to work. All right. So tomorrow morning, what we will do is we will first go over program project 2-2 as a class. I will do that. When I get done doing that, I will take the video that I'm working on and I will stop it. So I'll give you a 15-minute break so that video can stop and be produced, and I can later send it out to you as a private video. Then we'll start a public one where we will go over the pretest together as a class. If you want to help yourself for tomorrow, you can go back in then and write, create the 2 forms. All right, it's all in here and it will be sent to you. But create this form and create this form. You don't have to put this inside of it, but you can. It doesn't matter. All right, I think that'll help a lot because then tomorrow, boom, we'll jump right into writing code as opposed to getting fixated on the user interface. Okay, that's all I've got. Thanks for sticking around. Those of you who did, I'll talk to you tomorrow at 8 o'clock and I'll see you then.